All right, so hello, and thanks for watching. This is the last thing we're going to learn about trig. We're going to learn about the law of sines and the law of cosines. And basically, these are used when you have any triangle. So it does not have to be a right triangle. So we're going to start with the law of sines. So somewhere on the side of your paper, you're going to want to write this down. So on the side, you want to write law of sines. So the first thing you have to know is that you're going to use the law of sines if one, you have two angles plus one side. So that's the first thing you're going to look for. And the second thing is if you have two sides and a non-included angle plus one non-included, and I'll show you what that means. So two angles in the side, you know what that looks like. So this looks like if I have a triangle like this, and if I know this side is, say, 4, and I know this side is 8, the included angle would be here. But if you know this angle is, say, 28 degrees, that's a non-included angle. Okay, so that would be a situation where you use the law of sines. Another situation is if you know two of the angles and one side. So if we look at our example in number 1, we can see that we know this side, we know this side, and we know this angle right here, which is not included in between the two sides. All right, so the rule is you can set up a proportion. So the sine of A over the side length A is equal to the sine of B over B, which is equal to the sine of C over C. And please remember, you have to be in degrees. So what does this look like? Well, if I label this triangle here, A, B, C, the sides directly across, opposite the angles, are lowercase a, B, and C. So this angle right here is angle A, so directly across from it is side length A. This angle 28 is C, so this side length over here is lowercase c or little c. And then this angle here is B, so directly across from it is little b. Okay, so that's how you set up a law of sines problem. First you have to determine whether or not it is law of sines. So this is law of sines. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got. So I've got C, label, of course, step 1 is to always label. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label this side C, little c. And I know this side here, okay? And I'm going to call this little b because it's across from this angle here. And that's what I want to find is the angle B, okay? This is where my X goes. So how do I do that? Well, I know C and I know B. So basically I'm going to set up this proportion right here, okay? So I'm going to say the sine of B over B equals the sine of C over little c. The sine of B is what I don't know, so I'm going to leave that there. Side length B is 11 kilometers. This is the sine of 126 over 26. And so how do you solve this? Well, you all know how to solve this. You just simply cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to cross multiply here and here. So I get the sine of 126 times 11 equals the sine of B times 26. Okay? And so when I work this out, I'm going to end up dividing this by 26 and dividing this by 26 to cancel these out. And you can just type that directly in your calculator, and you should get 0.34. And that's going to equal the sine of B. Well, y'all know that in order to figure out what the angle is, you got to do the inverse sine, right? So at this point here, you should be typing in your calculator sine negative 1.34. And when you do all that, you should end up with 20 degrees. So it seems like a lot, but really it's not. So B, the measure of angle B equals 20 degrees. That was so fun. Let's do another one. Right, so I'm going to erase all this. Hopefully, I made my circle correctly. Wow, I did it right today. All right, so we're going to skip 2 because you're going to do that with a partner. So now we've got find the measure of angle C. So the first thing I'm going to do again is label everything. So this side over here is little c. This is angle A. So this side over here is little a. Okay, so this time I'm not going to be using these two ratios. I'm going to be using A and C. So I know A and C. So I'm going to write the sine of C over little c equals the sine of A over little a. So the sine of C is what I don't know, so I'm going to leave that written like that, and I'm going to put it over 15, because that's the side that corresponds. And then I know the sine of 96 degrees over 34. And once again, I'm just going to cross multiply and divide. So I've got the sine of 96 times 15, and that's all going to be divided by 34, equals the sine of C. This is where I got the 34, was this is times 34, so then you got to divide by 34 to cancel that out. All right, so when I work all that out and I type it in my calculator exactly how it looks, you should get the sine of C equals 0.43876. Well, as we know, if we want to find an angle, you just need to do the inverse sine, sine -1 of 0.43876, and you should get something around 26 degrees. So the angle C equals 26 degrees. Okay, so once again, it's just a matter of setting up your proportion correctly and labeling everything correctly. Let's try another one and see. I don't think that was going to work so well. All right. 3 times a try. All right, let's try another one. This is number 5. Once again, what is step 1? Step 1 is to label my sides. I notice that I have 2 sides and an angle. Therefore, I'm going to use law of sines. I'll also give you a hint. We're doing all law of sines right now. All right, so what do I have here? I have angle C. This is little c. I want to find the measure of angle B. This is little b. So this, once again, is going to be the sine of 131 over 22 equals the sine of B over 9. And I'm going to cross multiply and divide. So I get the sine of B times 22 equals the sine of 131 times 9. Notice I'm going to divide by 22. I'm going to type that in my calculator. Don't forget to do the top line first, hit enter, and then hit divide by 22. And you should end up with the sine of B. Well, I know I'm going to have to do the inverse sine because I don't know what B is. And when I divide all that out, I get 0.30874. So then when I type this in my calculator, you should get something around 18 degrees. So I know that the measure of angle B is 18 degrees. Okay. If I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video and rewatch whatever you need to rewatch. Whoa. That's funky. Okay. Moving on to number 7. All right, this time I have 2 angles and a side, just like I always have. So what's the first step that I'm going to do for number 7? Well, yeah, I'm going to label my sides. So I'm looking for AB this time. So that's this side right here. This is angle C, so this is side length C. This is angle B, so this is side length B. So what am I going to do to set this up? Exactly what I've been doing, although this time I'm looking for a side length, not an angle. So it's going to be a little bit different. So this we're looking at, we have this situation right here. 2 angles in the side. All right, so I'm just going to set this up. The sine of 58 over C equals the sine of 92 over 20. Okay, same situation, cross multiply. So the sine of 58 times 20 equals the sine of 92 times C. So now you'll notice this time I am dividing by the sine of 92, and I have to keep it balanced, I have to do the same thing on both sides. Now you can literally type this in your calculator just like it looks. So C is going to equal whatever this is. Just remember, type in the top row first, hit enter, then hit divided by, and it should say answer divided by the sine of 92. And again, you have to be in radians. And I believe you get 17. And so what this means is that this side length right here is 17 kilometers. Okay? Let's do a couple more, and then you'll have an opportunity to work with your friends. So here we go. Let's find AC in number 9. Oops. Let's see if it goes backwards. Yeah. All right. Number 9. Once again, we have 2 angles and a side. So step 1 is I want to find AC. Well, that's right here. And I notice it's across from B. So I'm looking for side length B. Now this one's a little bit tricky. Okay, so I know C, this side length here. Now I cannot use Pythagorean theorem because it's not a right triangle. But what I do know is I go back and I know that this angle, I can figure this angle out. And how do I do that? Well, I simply subtract from 180. So I'm going to do 25 plus 28, 8, 13, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 53. So I'm going to take 180 minus 53, and I end up with 127. So I can use what I know about angles to know that this is 127 degrees. So now I can figure out, and I don't need this A stuff at all. Okay? So I'm going to do sine of B, which is 28 degrees, over little b, that's what I'm looking for, equals the sine of 127 over 34. So again, sometimes you got to use what you know to figure things out. And it might take a minute to think about these things, but just remember, when you're stuck, have confidence and think, okay, what can I figure out? How can I use what I know to figure out what's missing? So once again, I'm going to cross multiply. A lot of y'all want to take shortcuts too. Don't until you really know it. Because it's really easy to make a simple mistake. So I'm dividing both sides by the sine of 127. Type all this in your calculator. Remember, type the top in, hit enter, then divide by the sine of 127. And you should get B equals 20. And it's 20 centimeters. So up here, I know that this side is 20 centimeters. We're going to do one more together. Number 11. Everybody take a look at number 11. Again, why do we need to know this? Well, we need to know this because not all triangles are right triangles. So you can't always use your trig ratios. If you notice, none of these have right angles. So that's when we have to use the law of sines. Once again, we've got 2 angles and a side. So let's label what we need. We need to find AB. That's this side right here. And I see this angle C. So this is side C. That's what I'm looking for. Well, I don't know this side here, B. But I do know this side here, A. But I don't know the angle. So I'm going to